Welcome to Y Nada Más, a Real Madrid podcast.
All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Y Nada Más, a Real Madrid podcast. I am your host, Eric Rivera, and it has been, I think, just a few days since I did my last podcast, but I did it from the road, as I've been doing, kind of like when I'm on the move and I can't get in my studio to do it. Finally, I'm here in front of the camera. So if you guys are listening to the podcast, I'm sorry, and not watching the podcast, please know that there is a YouTube version of the podcast that you can get. Just head on over to YouTube and go to Y Nada Más Podcast at Y Nada Más Podcast. And please hit the subscribe button there and, join us on this journey with the Y Nada Más podcast. It is really just a labor of love with two good guys, Halal and Trombak, who help me out occasionally, and we're always talking about the games and things like that. But then when I can, I get them on the podcast. If not, I am here by myself, essentially editing this thing and keeping it going as much as I can, with a little help here and there from some friends that can edit and graphic design and stuff, which is what I do too. But at the same time, this is a labor of love of mine. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it with that kind of announcement. So remember, we are on YouTube. Check us out. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, of course, hello, but you can also listen to the audio version of the podcast, really wherever podcasts are found, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and of course, everywhere. Spotify, those are the big ones, I guess, these days. We're on Instagram at Y Nada Más Podcast. I'm sorry. On Instagram, we are at YNM Podcast because our first one got deleted back in the days where La Liga wouldn't let you post anything up, any clips up. They still don't let you, but at least now they're posting things of their own occasionally on X or Twitter or whatever, and that helps, to kind of share every once in a while, like a big highlight, kind of thing. But you still can't do any of that on Instagram because they banned my account, and so I'm not doing any of that ever again. So that's why it's at YNM Podcast on Instagram. Where I'm most active is on Twitter at Y Nada Más Podcast. I haven't been as active this week. We are active, of course, on Facebook at Y Nada Más Podcast, and of course on our YouTube channel at Y Nada Más Podcast. Once again, I am your host, Eric Rivera. So, with that said, obviously you heard the intro. The intro needs, it's a man who needs no introduction. It's crazy, I was talking to Halal after the game. We started chatting a little bit, and I was saying, I think we are at first, obviously, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can talk about of Jude Bellingham. He is, of course, the man of the hour, the young man of the hour. Oh, we have to remind ourselves that he's only 20 years old. The guy is just doing incredible things that seem just somewhat, and I've seen ESPN FC, I've seen ESPN en Español, I've seen El Chiringuito, I've read articles. Everybody is pretty much speaking about the same exact thing, which is there are no longer any adjectives, there are no longer any words that can possibly describe what is going on with Jude Bellingham. Is he the second coming of Zidane? I don't think that's what it is. Obviously, I don't want to say he's the second coming of Zidane since Zidane is still alive and well, but I'm saying, Zidane obviously is retired and doing his own thing, but is he, I think, I don't want to say is he, I think, and one of the things I was telling my buddy Halal, is we are witnessing for me, we are already witnessing a new Real Madrid legend in the making. We are seeing that in real time happen. After Cristiano left, after Benzema left, there's been a void since, essentially that BBC era. Of course, we have the likes of Toni Kroos. We've had the likes of Luka Modric, which are incredible players in their own right. Casemiro, an incredible player in his own right. Sergio Ramos, Marcelo. All of these guys have been stars and legends for Real Madrid. But you've had these legendary players, the guys that made a difference completely, scoring goals when we needed them the most. And like the main guys when it came to goal scoring, obviously Sergio Ramos had some incredible plays, the 90 Ramos, which of course was, scoring headers in dying minutes of a game to make a comeback. Rodrigo did some amazing things last season, but, not last season, the season before last season, essentially. So during the 14th Champions League. But what Jude Bellingham is doing right now is something that I would say is up there with what Cristiano Ronaldo did for this club, or what's thought to do for this club. He's up there with Bale. He's up there, with Benzema. He's up there with the guys like Raul. I mean, obviously he's not getting those stats yet. Everything comes with whether or not he can be. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, obviously, but obviously all those things come that can he sustain what he's doing currently? We have to remember this guy is not a striker. He is a midfielder. He is an attacking midfielder. But he's been put in this position. He's been given this task, or he's taken this task. What I think is most impressive is that he's taken this task upon himself, essentially almost, to be the goal scorer for this team. And my God, do we need him right now, because Vinicius hasn't found his footing, I believe, yet. I think I saw some flashes of the Vinicius of old in exactly the Celta de Vigo game where, he got injured. And then he hasn't been able to find kind of his footing again. Rodrigo hasn't been able to find his form. Now, can we chalk it up to this formation that Ancelotti is playing with, which probably benefits Jude Bellingham, but kind of takes away from the likes of Vinicius and Rodrigo? Sure, we can chalk it up to that as well, but I feel like Vinicius and Rodrigo, I'm still giving them the benefit of the doubt. I think sooner or later they're going to find their form again, especially, guys like Vinicius. Rodrigo, I think, is a little, not that it's a little iffy that he's going to find his form. He's going to find his form again. He didn't have a good game against Barcelona, and we'll get into that game, but when it's great to see that he scored, in the game, in the Champions League, against Braga, but we're still waiting for those two guys, our two young strikers at this point, our only strikers at this point, and they're not even out and out number nines. They're wingers that have been converted to this central, role as two, playing with two strikers up top. They're taking time to adjust to it, but thank God for guys like Jude Bellingham that are stepping up for Jude Bellingham, not guys like Jude Bellingham stepping up to the plate and doing what he's doing. It's absolutely insane that he has pretty much taken it upon himself to win, score the winner, whether it's scoring the equalizer, scoring the winner, whatever it's doing, making the assists, whatever it is, Jude Bellingham is doing it, and you can call this whatever it is. It's a purple patch, but I think a purple patch, when does it go from being a purple patch to this guy is just phenomenal, because, you can keep calling him lucky for so long, but this is 13 games into the season we're talking about, and 13 games into La Liga season. That's 16 games in total if you count, the games that he's played for the Champions League, So we're thinking about all this, and it's like, when does it go from being a purple patch, from like a good run of form and being lucky essentially, to where it's just, this guy is just something else. This guy is a different level of talent. And I really think he's a different level of talent because, you could say whatever you want about luck, but luck does not you know, as they say, it's there is a saying that says, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, essentially. So you can't really put it all up to luck. Preparation, meaning that Jude Bellingham, we've all known or we've all heard the stories, is an absolutely hard worker. He's got talent, he's got skill. There's a reason he is now at Real Madrid. There is a reason he was playing well with Borussia Dortmund. There's a reason, people, all sorts of teams wanted him. There's a reason he's doing well in the England national team. He is a talented individual. And aside from that, he's a hard worker. Aside from that, he's showing maturity well beyond his years. And then you combine that with the fact that that preparation, he obviously has a good head on his shoulders. That preparation is meaning essentially the opportunities that have been given to him. You put him in and you're putting him in his 4-4-2 or, diamond formation, or whatever you want to call it, whether you wanted to call it like a 4-3-1-2, formation, and it's obviously benefiting him, and is being put into that situation. But whether you put a play, you can put any sort of player. We've seen, Hazard come in. We've seen Luka Jovic come in. Guys who came in with, all this kind of, hoopla, all this kind of momentum, essentially, or pedigree, or name. They had a name behind them. And they failed miserably. They didn't take their opportunities, or they just, they got injuries, but they didn't take the opportunities that they had. And, they weren't able to get the results that we wanted them to get, and it's, Jude Bellingham is taking advantage of it. He's getting the opportunities. His preparation is tying in. And so that's what you call luck. That's essentially his luck. It's being in the right place at the right time, but he wouldn't be in the right place at the right time if he wasn't hustling to get into that position. I see Jude Bellingham running all over the field and trying to make tackles. He loses the ball and he tries to make a tackle. He's hustling up and down the field. He's trying to get into positions. He's trying to make passes. He's trying to, as much as he can, stay in the game at all costs, even on a quiet game which was the game against Barcelona. He was essentially trying and continuing and trying and continue to try. It's that grind. It is that grind that we have all come to appreciate, that I think at the end of the day sets players apart from just guys who have incredible talent, but they don't have that additional. It's just a combination of so many things. I can't put a finger on it of how excited I am. I watched this game with my son after coming back from, so just to kind of put it in perspective, let's get off all the Jude Bellingham talk, but kind of talk about the Barcelona game a little bit. So I came to the Barcelona game. I had to do something that in this stage and age almost seems impossible. So I was telling you guys on my last podcast that essentially I had to go. So my son's game, he had a soccer game. My son loves playing as a goalkeeper. He's got an incredible right foot and he can score bangers. I mean, I was playing with him today in the park and he can score bangers. He's only 8 years old, but he's doing really well. He's doing really well, but he loves goalkeeping. So he's playing as a goalkeeper. So he had to go, his game, was at 10 a.m. on Saturday, which of course on East Coast time was exactly the same time that El Clásico was going to begin. So I'm sitting there watching on the field, and I said to myself, I'm not going to watch the game. I'm not going to look at my phone. And I tell you, it took so much of me not to open the, ESPN app or, and I turned off all notifications for any of those things, because I've already learned the hard way that those notifications just kill you. So I turned off all the notifications, wasn't looking at my phone, and also I'm sitting with a group of parents that are all football fans, and the other team's parents are football fans. I see another kid, the dad wearing a Barcelona shirt. So I'm thinking, this guy's probably going to be watching the thing. Let me get away from him so I don't, hear or see anything. Thankfully, I didn't hear or see anything. I was able to stay away from Twitter. I was able to stay away from everything, social media, everything. And I didn't actually get to see the game until 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock when I finally, got back home, had lunch, They were fixing my AC in the house. All sorts of stuff was going on. And I finally said, okay, I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to watch this game. The first few minutes, obviously, the goal from Gundogan, which was a terrible mix up there. Alaba couldn't clear, David Alaba couldn't clear the ball. Our defense is asleep, and the one guy who's not even a fast guy is the only guy that stays awake and keeps running through on his play. I mean, he was the one who played the 1-2 pass, essentially, Gundogan, or not even the 1-2 pass, I'm sorry, because Tchouaméni was the one who passes it back. And really, Tchouaméni passes it into a space which is full of Real Madrid players, but nobody jumps on it. And Gundogan just runs through and gets that going. Not only that, David Alaba tries to clear it. It's kind of a haphazard clearance. It bounces off Gundogan, and essentially, it stays in his possession. He just needs to slot it past Kepa. So I was already incredibly angry right then and there. My son comes upstairs. We sit down. We're watching it. My other son, who's not really that much into football, he's only 6 years old, is watching the game next to me with his cell phone. Playing games next to me on the cell phone while I'm watching the game. And I say, you listen, guys, do not disturb me while I'm here. Don't start singing. Don't start screaming. Don't start fighting with each other, because they fight over my phone, all sorts of shit. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm already in a bad mood. So I'm already telling them, like, don't bother me right now. I'm already in a bad mood watching this game. There's 1-0. I don't think anything's good going to happen. It's just, I already had the feeling that I always have when we face Barcelona, which is they come in to play this game. They come in to play hard. And we just looked like absolutely, honestly, I felt we got dominated in the first half. I didn't really see anything that I would be like, okay, we're going to pull this one out somehow, it is Real Madrid, but it's funny because, Xavi has said in the past, and he says it rightfully so. Xavi has said in the past, Real Madrid is the type of team, and I think Pep Guardiola has said it, two guys that are Barcelona guys. So they know the mystic kind of style that is Real Madrid, which is we can go 1-0 down, And, even in that David Beckham documentary that's playing on Netflix, David Beckham talks about how players, Ronaldo and Figo and all these guys are just cracking up, laughing, even though they're 1 down. And he's like, what is going on right now? We're 1-0 down. And he's like, don't worry. Ronaldo says to him, don't worry, we're going to score. And they would end up winning the game. That's just, seems like it's the Real Madrid way, which for us fans sucks, because we always start sort of like, it's like we need to be losing in order for this team to actually wake up and win. And especially, lately under Ancelotti, it seems like, not lately, but for the last 2 seasons, it seems like that's what's been happening with Real Madrid. And then going into this season, of course. So I'm pissed. I'm thinking, can it possibly be that we're going to come back? Like I said, Xavi and Pep Guardiola always say Real Madrid is the type of team that you need to absolutely kill off in order for them not to come back, because they will come back. You need to kill them off completely. And in the past, I would say that Barcelona does a pretty good job of killing us off, because I don't know what it is. It's the one team that no matter if we're in the best absolute form and Barcelona is in the shitter, they still find a way to beat us. And it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts, and I'm sure it drives you nuts as Madridistas, So I'm thinking to myself, we're not going to be able to pull this out, and they almost scored. They had other shots. They had other chances. They almost scored. Well, Fermin hits the post. Inigo Martinez, I think, also hits the post. So there were a bunch of chances that didn't happen. I think Joao Felix is on a doing on a one-on, almost has a one-on-one situation with Kepa. And if it weren't for Carvajal, of all people, stepping in at the last minute or chasing him down to get the ball and, scarily, essentially, able to get the ball without committing a foul, it would have been, I think we would have been done and dusted, And I would say, there are other things that we can talk about. Obviously, Tchouaméni wasn't having the best game. Bellingham wasn't having the best game. I think Gavi was all over him. As much as I dislike Gavi, he was all over Bellingham. He was doing a fantastic job of keeping him at bay. But when nobody else is doing anything on the pitch, or say, I think Toni Kroos was the other. I think Toni Kroos was actually one of our better defensive players in the midfield. Actually, I think if you look at the stats, he was, aside from Gavi from Barcelona, he was the one that was actually winning the most ground, duels essentially is Toni Kroos. And then, of course, I thought Valverde was doing, a pretty okay job. You look at the stats for Mendy. Mendy did absolutely nothing the entire game. It's pretty insane how that happened. How he was just getting killed by Cancelo, who was playing as a makeshift right winger, not even a position he normally plays, right? So he was getting killed, and that was causing us a lot of trouble. And they're making runs into the box, through that right-hand side. In attack, we're pretty much non-existent. Vinicius is not having a good game. Rodrigo is going through a really kind of bad form. It seems like Vinicius, I hate to say it. I mean, I love Araujo, though. I mean, I think he's one of the players from Barcelona that I would say, I wish we had Araujo, we have Rudiger, who I think Alaba has been off and on. We're missing Militao. But Araujo was able to keep Vinicius at bay, essentially. But Vinicius, once again, not playing really in his favored position, and they're kind of, I just don't think the opportunities were coming to him, especially with Mendy on the sideline. Mendy, I'm sorry, playing as a left back. They bring in Luka Modric, but especially bringing in Camavinga adds a new dynamic where, you have a guy that's going to be making inverted runs or overlapping runs, mostly inverted runs. I mean, he was coming up kind of through the middle and being sort of that extra man. So Gavi's now has to, Gavi's already tired in the second half. He's been chasing Bellingham all over the place. He's been doing a great job of it. Now he's got other things to contend with as well, and plus he's getting tired. And then I also think the introduction to Joselu actually opens up things for Bellingham too, because you finally have somebody that if they do try to kick, crosses into the box, there's a 6'4" recipient there, which whether he's a world-class number 9 or not, is actually now occupying center backs. Because before, essentially, when you see that Rodrigo isn't in the greatest form, the midfield isn't able to make, pretty much any sort of incisive runs. Vinicius seems to be covered by Araujo. They're not really making that big of a difference. You kind of they're kind of okay with everything, but now they have to sit back a little bit more instead of stepping out. They have to sit back a little bit more. And, they were up 1-0. Instead of stepping out a little bit more, they started going a little bit into their shell in the second half. And Real Madrid also started pushing higher up, right? And I think what happens with Jude Bellingham is I just love those moments where it's just like, screw it, I got to take a shot. I love goals like that. I love goals like what Bellingham did, but I never thought that shotgun sort of banger was going to come out. It didn't even look like he kicked it that hard, which is what's insane about that shot. And I'm thinking to myself, obviously, the reason that it all happens afterwards, the reason it all happens is you have Joselu, you have, Vinicius, those guys are still going to occupy center backs. You now have Camavinga there, Tchouaméni, they're crowding basically. They're our team, their midfield, everything. They're crowding, the final third essentially in Barcelona, in and around Barcelona's box. So Gavi's kind of occupied, and I pretty much think, they leave Bellingham kind of open there because he receives that ball pretty much wide open and nobody steps up. Because I think nobody in their right mind is thinking this guy's going to take a shot from out there. And not only are they not thinking that he's going to take a shot from there, although Tchouaméni almost scored one 2 seconds earlier. But they're all thinking, he's not going to score from out there. Ter Stegen's going to cover it. But the absolute rocket that this kid unleashed, changes the game completely, because I think it's not only, and the thing is in football, I think it's not only the goal being scored that lifts a team and kind of drops another, so lifts one team up, but then at the same time causes the other one to go down. I think what happens here is essentially the goal that Jude Bellingham scores at that moment. Not only is it a banger and it just completely shocks everyone, you look at the face of the Rolling Stones, I think it was Keith Richards essentially looking at him. He looked like he had just seen, seen a ghost, him and Mick Jagger, and he just scores this goal from way outside the box. It's a banger. it lifts up, obviously, the spirits of Real Madrid, who were already on the up. The momentum was already pushing forward, was already on the up. And it kind of brings down Barcelona. And, they bring on Lewandowski, they bring on Rafinha. They take out Fermin, and they take out these, I think they took out Joao Felix. And that's what ends up happening. I mean, it's just it kept on it gave them a shot in the arm like nothing else, and really brought down Barcelona. Barcelona then gets a little bit, I think, the opportunities and the abilities, of course, of Robert Lewandowski and Lamine Yamal and these guys kind of injecting a little bit more, freshness. And of course, they have a skill set that is going to help, obviously, make us a little bit weary, Real Madrid a little bit weary. So they have a little bit of a shift in momentum again, maybe around, towards maybe 10 minutes left in the game. And then it just shifts back to Real Madrid and, Luka Modric, who is this absolutely, insane player that also can make a difference and slow down the game and, just change games still at 38 years of age and 37 years of age. And, the ball comes in and the pass, I don't think Luka Modric, I don't know if Luka Modric was trying to make a pass. I don't know if it seemed like he was trying to make a pass or stop the ball, or if he was trying to make a shot on goal, but I think it was more of him trying to control the ball. The ball bounces irregularly and it falls to the guy that's always going to be where he needs to be, which is Jude Bellingham. It's the guy that is always going to, it's just, he wants it. That's the thing. That's the thing that you can talk about Jude Bellingham is he wants it. He wants to score goals. He wants to win the game. He wants to be at this club. He wants to be the man. And that's where I go back to this idea where this was also, we have to take into consideration, going back to the legendary status of cementing yourself, you got to remember that this is also, obviously they had a Clásico that was like a preseason Clásico where Real Madrid hits the woodwork like 7 times, but then Barcelona ends up beating us 3-0. And Dani Carvajal, in all his wisdom, comes up after the game and says essentially, don't worry, when it's the real season, we'll show them. We hit they won the game, but we hit the woodwork 7 times. It's one of those things. It's one of those nights. It's, it's preseason. When push comes to shove, or essentially when the game is for real, we'll show them what it is. We'll show them who we are, or we'll run over them, I think he said. I wouldn't say this was a run over, but in the way that the comeback was done, with Jude Bellingham scoring a brace, with one of those goals being the banger that it was, with the second goal going through the legs of Ter Stegen in the final minutes of the game, and Jude Bellingham, and it being Jude Bellingham who scores it. This guy that Barcelona fans, and I think, I was even watching some of guys like Ex-Buyer and all these other guys that, make all these YouTube reaction videos. And all these guys are trying to say, Bellingham, he's just, he's just lucky. It's just, it's just luck. He's just in the right place at the right time. They're tap-ins, essentially like everything they've said about Cristiano Ronaldo over the years, right? And man, did he prove them wrong today. But not only did he prove them wrong, he made every single Madridista stand up and say, what the heck is going on? What the heck is going on? This is this guy's first Clásico. It is a Clásico that we're being played. It's not playing in the United States for shits and giggles. No, it's being played. It's not at the Camp Nou. It's at the Montjuic, at the Estadio Olímpic. But it's still Barcelona. It's still playing against Barcelona. And Barcelona. With everything we want to say, yes, they haven't been looking the best, but their young guys are pretty impressive, and I got to be admitted as a Madridista. I've been impressed by the likes of Fermin Lopez. I think Lamine Yamal, if he continues on this, is going to be a difficult player. Gavi had a great game. These guys, this is Barcelona still. This is still a team that, for a lot of people in the world is a difficult team to beat. And on their day are always going to have that mystique about them until, it gets completely ruined or, they continue down in the dumps, but that bad form is only going to last so long, I think, and And they still always cause us trouble. As much as we want to say, oh, it's going to be easy to beat them, I am never feeling like we're just going to run over Barcelona. I've learned too many times over the time. I've been disappointed way too many times in my years as a Madrid fan for me to feel like we're just going to run over Barcelona. That is something that for some reason they do to us, and we can't return the favor, except thankfully the Copa del Rey last season, where we were able to, score, where we were to beat them 4-0. But they still have a lot of games over us, especially in that golden era of theirs. So I never, go into any of the games saying we're absolutely going to win. I'm always hoping we are. And I'm always thinking that we are. And I said it on the last podcast. I said, unless Jude Bellingham decides that this is his Clásico, or said something to that effect, you can go to my last podcast. And I said, we have Jude Bellingham, and I think he's going to come in there and he's going to say, nope, today is my day. Today is the day where I'm going to try and prove, or I'm going to say that I belong here, And that's what he did. And he did it on his first Clásico, 14 goals in 13 games. And that's why I say, where do you stop saying that this is a purple patch? When do you stop saying that this is just a run of good form, or this is luck? I feel like luck is something that you do 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 3 times, 4 times, No one is that lucky, people. No one is that lucky to do something 13 times in a row. When you're doing it 13 times in a row, I think after 10 times, it's already becoming a habit, where it's already demonstrated. It's already something that's demonstrating, that's sort of your regular behavior, Now, is it something that's sustainable? No, it's not something that's sustainable, because stats will tell us, or just, common statistics will tell us. And just the law of averages essentially will tell us that, Jude Bellingham is going to have to slow down at some point. He's not going to be able to score a goal every single game, and he hasn't scored a goal in every single game. But the game, like, he didn't score against Atletico Madrid, and then he didn't even play against Las Palmas. So, but essentially he scored in all the games he's played, So, except for one. So, I mean, that's the crazy thing about it. And so that's not luck anymore, guys. We're looking at somebody who is a legend in the making. When all these terms have been thrown around of generational talent and whatnot, I think we are looking at it. We are witnessing that. We are witnessing that moment. I mean, the minute Jude Bellingham came to this, I think it's going to be, and I don't want to, I'm not going to, you know what? I don't want to continue to sing his praises and sort of jinx the poor guy, But I just think that he's got a mentality where he simply does not care. It seems like he's just listening to the voice in his head telling him, keep going. And he's not listening to anybody else. He's not listening to the press. I don't know what he does on his downtime, whether he's not listening to the press, or he's not trying to believe his own hype, or he's not listening to everything that's being said around him about him the world over, That's some incredible sense of, and I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I'm just right now making, a guess, but I'm thinking, how does one stay, it takes an incredible amount of, I don't know, willpower, or just you have to be a mentality monster, which is many of us as Madridistas and many of you guys have said is something that perhaps, that Cristiano Ronaldo have, perhaps Vinicius doesn't have it as much. He does kind of get sucked into this whole, the drama and the yelling and the, obviously horrible things that have been said to him and horrible things that have been said about him, racism and all sorts of stuff, because he's just a guy that won't shut up. He's going to keep coming at you, and he's going to keep screwing with you. And that's his whole idea. He likes to get at you. He likes to make you uncomfortable. And I think that's a good thing. But Bellingham is the type of guy where it just seems like, he's going to keep coming at you, but he's quietly doing it. He's just always doing it. He's always grinding. He's always got this look on his face. I always kind of look at his face and it seems like he's tired, but he's not tired. He's just, it's like he's anxious that he can't score goals, or he's anxious that he's not making enough of an impact. So he's got to continue doing it. And that's kind of along the lines of what we saw with Ronaldo, where Ronaldo would be visibly frustrated as the game went on. If he wasn't scoring, they could be winning by 3, but if he wasn't scoring, he would still show a visible frustration of the fact that that he had not scored, that he had not assisted or supported his team in some way, And I really see that with Jude Bellingham. I feel like that is this type of mentality that we're starting to see, is that type of mentality. So is he a legend in the making? I absolutely think so. And I go back to, one of the guys that I love the most is Mourinho, and some of the things I remember seeing in that documentary they did when he was at Tottenham Hotspur, and he's sitting down with Dele Alli, and he's telling him, the difference between a world-class player, and I've said it on this podcast before, but the difference between a world-class player and somebody that is just kind of like a good player is that a good player essentially survives, I guess, and has moments. He has moments, but a world-class player is able to kind of have those moments, but is always staying pretty consistent, And one of the things I was talking with my friend Hilal on, I was saying, this guy's legendary. This guy's insane, Jude Bellingham. And he was like, laughing, and then he's like, yeah, he didn't even have that good of a game. But that's the thing. That's the thing that we saw from Messi. That's the thing that we saw from Cristiano Ronaldo. That's the thing we saw with great players throughout the time, throughout football. Maradona, Pelé, think about it. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and I'm throwing him in there because, he was one of my favorite players when he was playing too. You look at Raul, you look at all these guys that have played football throughout the years. And it's like, it's always that they could be having a bad game, but they show up in the minute that you most need them. They're quiet the whole game. They might be having a stinker. And then there's one flash of brilliance. And that was the only flash of brilliance they needed to switch and put the game on its head. It's insane. It's insane that's what, it's insane, but they're able to do that. That is these mentality monsters, these world-class players. Mbappe is one of them. As much as, Madridistas won't want to at least talk about that name. Haaland, I think, he can have a string of bad games, but I've seen Haaland play where I'm just like, he'll get one shot on goal, and that goal will go, that shot will go in. It's just those guys that it's like they need that one shot and that shot goes in. And that's what it is. That's the class that they have. They make the most of the one opportunity that they're given, even when they're having a crappy game. And that's exactly what Bellingham did. So Mourinho, talking about that whole thing about setting apart, what sets apart essentially a world-class player from just, a good player is the consistency. And Bellingham is demonstrating to us a consistency. He's 13 games into the season. Well, obviously more games into the season if we're counting all the games that we've played so far. 16 games or something like that. So we're in this part of the season. We're soon going to get to the winter break, essentially. And Jude Bellingham is still having these games, And so that is demonstrating that consistency. And if he is able to continue having these games, even if he doesn't score in some, he disappears in a few, but he still has the overall, the overall amount of support and how would you say assistance and ability to impact the games continues throughout the entire season, whether there's a couple of ups and downs in there. He's already setting himself up to be on that level of consistency of being a world-class player. and being easily regarded as one of the best players, to be a legend of Madrid. Now, obviously, we're hoping, knock on wood, I'm knocking on wood here. My desk is made out of wood. So knocking on wood here that, he can stay injury free. He can stay healthy, which thankfully, he's 20 years old and that he doesn't seem to be too injury prone. So hopefully that continues in that vein. But obviously, we need Ancelotti to rest him here and there. Tchouaméni obviously is a loss right now for after this Clásico. It seems like he's going to be out for 2 months with, I think it's, a broken metatarsal. So I guess, a finger or one of his toes essentially. And so that's going to put him out. That's going to put it, but if we're going to have guys like Camavinga, playing in that position, or Toni Kroos, who's been doing a pretty solid job, even though he doesn't like playing as that defensive midfielder, I think, but he can do it well. Camavinga can do it well, which obviously makes us lose a left back position because Camavinga has been deputizing that better than the guys who are actually left backs. But going back, if Bellingham can continue that form, and so one of the things that I think was said before I decide to, I actually want to stop talking about Bellingham because I've done it for 40 minutes now. One of the things that was said was, can Real Madrid, if Bellingham stops, so if Bellingham, this output essentially is going to slow down a little bit. So when it slows down, this output, because if Bellingham isn't the one giving the assists, if he's not the one giving the goals, right, then we really do need Vinicius to step up. We need Rodrigo to find his form again. But I'm honestly thinking, guys, I honestly want to see if Rodrigo needs a kick in the butt to wake up a little bit more. He's going to need more of a kind of a slap on the wrist, kind of daddy slap on the wrist, essentially, where kind of saying, hey, man, Ancelotti is going to have to step in and say, listen, man, I'm going to have to sit you down because Joselu, who, yes, isn't the greatest striker, in the world, but he's doing a pretty decent job this season. He's a 6'4" player. He's been already scoring goals. Put him in the box. He's a reference point. He's going to keep those center backs busy. That's going to give space to guys like Bellingham. It's going to give opportunities to guys like Vinicius to make runs into the box and do their thing, as, he's keeping them occupied. And it also gives you an outlet that if you decide to swing across into the box, there's actually somebody there who can head it into the goal and do it well. So at this point, I really think that, we kind of got to sit Rodrigo down for a little bit and let Joselu have a run of games and let Rodrigo be the super sub for now. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I feel the things need to be done going forward, because if Bellingham's output slows down, we need somebody who can pick up the slack. And right now I'm banking on that Vinicius can probably do that, and that Joselu can do it. He's already scored, five goals, I think, this season. So far, I'm looking at his stats right now. Well, I'm looking at his overall stats. So far, yeah, he scored 5 goals so far this season with 2 assists. That's 6 goal. That's what do you call that? 6 goal contributions in 17 matches so far. Not bad. And I think and he's not playing the majority of the minutes. He started only 11 of them. So I'm thinking, you give this guy a little bit more of a run and we see what happens. He did a great job. He did a great job last season at Espanyol. He did a good job when he was at Deportivo Alavés, and I think he could do a good job with us. He seems like he's finding his form, at least later in his career. If you look at his numbers over, with his time at Stoke City and Hanover and Deportivo La Coruña and Newcastle, if you look at all the things that this guy, who has essentially been somewhat of a journeyman in a way and has finally finding his form, let him find it with Madrid. He's doing well right now, and let him be that guy that can essentially bang in goals when we need him to bang in goals if nobody else can and Vinicius can't and Rodrigo's not. Give him that opportunity. Like I said, the guy's 6'4", give him that opportunity. And he's been doing it and give the other team something to think about. I think right now the lineup I think is set for us. Obviously Bellingham is there in the middle. I think it's Kroos and Valverde. With Tchouaméni as the defensive midfielder, which now obviously he's going to step out, so I'm pretty sure it could be either Camavinga and Kroos playing there in the midfield, both of them together. At the left back, we're going to have to give, minutes to Mendy or Fran Garcia and hope that they vastly improve, but especially right now where Tchouaméni's going to be out. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the way moving forward. And I think that right now, I'm not going to say we're flying high because, we're only we're level on points with Girona. I still think Girona's whole thing, I don't think is entirely sustainable. I mean, we already saw when they played against us. I think Girona, when they meet, essentially they meet Atletico Madrid, when they meet Barcelona, maybe. Barcelona is not going to want to be the Catalan club. Barcelona wants to be the Catalan club. They're the Catalan club. So I feel like when Girona meets those guys, we're going to start seeing when who's really gonna how they're gonna do. Athletic Club. I think even Rayo, some Osasuna, they've got some pretty tough teams coming up next, which aren't just, guys that they can easily run over. We're looking at their next few games, let's say for Girona. They have a Copa del Rey fixture. So that's their, they have a Copa del Rey fixture coming up. Looking here. Sorry guys for kind of zoning out for a second. I was just looking at Girona has a Copa del Rey fixture against San Roque de Lepe. But their next La Liga games essentially are Osasuna, Rayo Vallecano. Osasuna, is up and down, but they're fighters. Rayo Vallecano, I think Rayo Vallecano away, so it's in Vallecas. Athletic Club, Bilbao. Tough is going to be tough for them as well. Valencia, I don't know because Valencia's been up and down essentially. But anyway, the interesting thing there is how are they going to be able to sustain this form that they're currently in? They lost 3-0 to Real Madrid, and then they played teams like Cádiz, Almería, Celta de Vigo, guys that are at the bottom of the table, a struggling Villarreal, so they haven't really played the heavy hitters yet, and the heavy hitter they did play was us, so I think Barcelona is going to want to be the Catalan club, so the one that stands out for the Catalans. So, we're not out of the woods yet. Girona's probably going to drop points. Atletico Madrid still has a game in hand, and that would put that game in hand if they were to beat Sevilla and continue in their run of form, would put them level on points with us. So that's something that we also have to take into account, that is Atletico Madrid is in a pretty solid form. They beat us and they can continue, chasing after us. So it's not like all is said and done. We have to continue with the momentum that we gained, obviously beating a direct rival in La Liga, and continue on, because we, the one thing that we do, unfortunately, is defensively, we're I think it was something that I was reading in an article that essentially that Real Madrid, no team in La Liga has conceded more goals in the opening 15 minutes of matches than Real Madrid. So no team in our entire division, has conceded more goals in the opening 15 minutes of the game than we have. It's just something that we always seem to do. And it annoys the hell out of me, because I'm feeling like that's where we need to tie things up, because that's going to pay those little mix-ups. They're going to be one game, I swear, it always happens. There's going to be one game where they score on you early, and it just seems like the ball doesn't want to go in for us, so it's not going to go in, And then as you go in and you play the tougher teams in the Champions League and things like that, you can't be allowing goals in the beginning of the game and trying to always come back. That's just not something. It goes against, of course, going into the statistics again, and the law of averages, of course, is that you can only do what we did in the Champions League a couple years ago, 2 years ago. You can only do that, every once in a while. It's not something that you're going to be able to continuously sustain making comebacks. It just does not happen, So I think we're, obviously but we didn't play that well against Barcelona, but we were able, because of guys like Jude Bellingham, because of having this man on our team, this legend in the making on our team, we're going to be able to eke out things. And he's obviously going to be an important piece for us in the games coming up and this entire season and for the rest of the time that I hope he stays with Real Madrid forever. But it's understandable that, he's going to be an important part. But we need Vinicius to step up. We need our other players to make it. And I'm advocating for Joselu to make a start instead of Rodrigo, because I think at this point, Rodrigo, yes, you can give them opportunities like Ancelotti is doing to kind of play through their rough patch. But at this point, I think he's given enough. He's had enough opportunities to play through the rough patch to where now you got to sit him down so that he gets frustrated enough to where he's like, I really got to do something about this. And he's got to lose his spot to Joselu, I think, for a little bit. And if you can, if he comes in, then if he wants it so bad and he starts coming in, if he starts coming in off the bench and making that difference, then, he regains his position. But that's what I feel going forward is going to happen with Real Madrid. But thankfully, we're still at the top. A la Madrid, we're now leading La Liga. We're perfect 3-0 right now so far in the Champions League. Copa del Rey hasn't started, so let's continue there as well. And we just have to look that. But at the end of the day, the one thing I'm worried about is, as much as I love Jude Bellingham and singing "Hey Jude" and all this stuff about him, he can't be the only guy making the difference for us. So we need to have the main guys that we need to step up. And we have good players. I'm not trying to say everybody else is dog shit. No, everybody is good. I love our Real Madrid team. Guys like I said, Camavinga has been doing a phenomenal job. Tchouameni, I think Rudiger. I love Rudiger. Carvajal has been having a fantastic season, and he had a great game against Barcelona. Best on the pitch in that first half, essentially, was the only reason we didn't concede more goals. So, we have the players to make it, but when it comes to goal scoring, we need it to be other people aside from Bellingham, who isn't even an out-and-out striker. That's not his job, but he's doing it for us. I want to see Vinicius stepping into there. I want to see Joselu banging goals in, and I want to see Rodrigo banging goals in, because if you add those guys' goals with Bellingham's crazy run of form right now, we'd be home free. I think we'd be home free, and I'd start saying easily Real Madrid, we can win the Champions League. I guess the only part that we really do need to worry about still is our defense and them swinging balls into the box, because it always seems like we can't handle those. But that's it. So, you know what, guys? I'm going to leave you right there with that. That is the podcast for today. I don't want to, this one's gone a little bit longer. And then my little cut-ins that I usually do at the ones that I do when I'm on the road. So essentially, guys, just thank you for listening. I'll be back, and I guess for next week's game, essentially, where who do we face? Who do we face next week? I don't know. Who do we face next week? Shoot. See, this is where I'm bad. Come on, guys. Who are we facing? Who is Real Madrid's next team? Oh, Rayo Vallecano. So our next match is Rayo Vallecano. So I will see you or talk to you guys after that match against Rayo Vallecano, which is thankfully at the Santiago Bernabeu too. And I hope we can continue this run of form. And that it's not another draw, because we have been getting a little bit too many of those lately. But yeah, guys, thank you for listening once again to the podcast. I will be back next week with that one. Hopefully I can do that one from here in the studio. let's see what else. That's it. So remember, please subscribe to the podcast. If you want to see the video version of the podcast, or you are watching the video version of the podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really helps me out. Even if you're just listening, subscribe to the channel. It would really, really help me. It really make me super happy, guys, if you can continue, supporting the work that we do here. It would let me know that, I'm actually doing this and people are listening to me. So that would be a great help. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Of course, listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, whatever. If you are listening to me on Apple Podcasts, please, guys, leave a comment, leave a rating. It helps me rise up in the ranks there. It helps me rise up in the ranks with all the podcasts that are on Apple Podcasts. So, it helps us keep us up there as well. So that's it, guys. I will talk to you in the next week or so. And thank you very much for listening. And as always, a la Madrid.